think I'm gonna take the puts on the QQQ. It's showing overbought and it's at all-time highs. See. Pretty much on every time frame, it's overbought starting at the 30-minute. So it's getting close to where it's going. Yeah, on the 1 hour, it's overbought and it's making a doji candle at the top of the trend line. The 4 hour is even worse.
I'm John Fortin. Here's your CNBC News update at this hour. As President Biden was in the air heading to Wisconsin to promote his infrastructure proposals, the White House announced he and First Lady Jill Biden will be going to Surfside, Florida on Thursday.
Now, NASDAQ is the strongest performer, up nearly 0.2%.
Time now for today's power movers. First up, Moderna trading at all-time highs after saying its vaccine shows promise against variants during lab testing, including
Moderna had a big move up.
Looks like a huge dump.
And there's a huge bearish divergence on the RSI. It's making new highs. And there's a divergence on the RSI. It's got a lower point than it was before.
Saying it'll benefit.
Market's only up 45 points now.
Stands to be a market leader in the EV takeoff and landing industry. You can read more about all of this
That many?
at CNBC.com/pro.
And ahead on Power Lunch, Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis laying out her vision for a new crypto banking system here in the U.S.
S&P's is actually performing worse today. NASDAQ technology is pretty much still in the lead. It looks like still leading the markets.
That'd be nice.
The worst behind that struggle.
That would be nice.
Takeoff, United Airlines is betting big on the travel return with new planes and fresh interiors. But with the spread of these COVID variants, could the industry be getting ahead of itself? We'll have all of this when Power Lunch returns.
I didn't take it up there. Can you watch for the retest then? I got it at 62. Or is it? You think it'll retest or go back into the tip? It may form a symmetrical triangle like it did before, but it's just responding to VWAP for the first time in half an hour or something. It did leave kind of an untested viewpoint up there, and if it makes a new high, it'll be forced into a symmetrical triangle. Watching for that retest in B point here, so you can see that it also has that gap above the B point. That's having a little bit of trouble with it.
Welcome back. Oil's been such a story this year. It's closing up for the day. Closing for the day. We'll see if it's up. Pippa Stevens is at the commodity desk. Pippa.
Hey, Kelly. Well, it's been a volatile session for oil today, with the contract swinging between 1% moves in both directions as the market awaits Thursday's meeting between OPEC and its allies. WTI crude futures finishing the session about...
I think we're getting pretty close to a short-term top, at least for the market. I don't think it's going to crash, but I could see us going back to 350, 340, maybe 330, somewhere in this range within the Bollinger Bands. I could even see it. First, it's going to have to break its trend line here, which is pretty steep. And then we'll have to see if this holds support. And from there, if it doesn't hold, we'd have to see where it could go. But I'm thinking somewhere in that range, and I'm thinking it's going to come down sometime within the next month. I think it's going to be within the first 2 weeks of the month, but you know, that's just my best guess, and I would be fairly confident saying that it would happen within the next month.
Back to 1988. Knowing that, now look at it intraday at 5. At one point we're at 92 basis points. Open that chart up towards the end of the first quarter, the end of March, and you see that spike on the left?
If anyone that has any stocks that they want me to cover, just drop a comment and let me know what stocks you want me to cover.
Here is that 5 to 7 years is about where the mortgage paper lasts, considering speed of prepayments and the fact that interest rates and refis, maybe we're coming to the end of the road.
I think AMC is actually looking really interesting right now. It could be, we're in somewhat of a triangle here, and it could be a bull flag, and it could actually break above out of this top trend line, and it could, you know, try to reach these highs again. At the same time, it could fail and break down, and then we could see it go, you know, who knows where. It could go anywhere from, you know, right below the trend line all the way to, you know, $40 or less. But it's interesting because this signal here, this triangle, is pretty much telling you that it's trading within a range, and the range is getting smaller, and when this happens, the range tightens up, and it's going to break out one way or another. And sometimes it can even fake you out. You'll see it break below, and you'll think it's, you know, gonna fall, and then it gets back into the triangle and breaks up. So you gotta watch out for fake outs, but I do think AMC is looking interesting. GME is not as interesting looking, in my opinion. It's been pretty much in a very, very tight range for a couple of weeks now. It's pretty much trading within a couple of percentages, so it's not very volatile right now, and that's pretty much what you want when you trade this, is for volatility. So not too interested in GameStop here.
Not debase the value of the U.S. dollar.
And Lemus practices what she preaches. She's an investor in Bitcoin as well.
I buy Bitcoin and I hold Bitcoin.
You buy Bitcoin?
Oh, yeah.
You have Bitcoin?
I do.
How much Bitcoin do you have?
Well, I only have, I think, 5 Bitcoin.
So only 5 Bitcoin, but she bought them in 2013 for about $300 each. So she can now add a couple of zeros to that number. And Wyoming is in the process of setting up its own crypto banking system that Lummis hopes will become a model for other states as well. My full interview with Senator Lummis and all of the sessions from today's Financial Advisor Summit will be available at CNBC.com/FA100. Guys.
Now, Elon, these, well, first of all, 5 Bitcoin is nothing to sneeze at, right? You might only have 5, but that's 5 more than I've got. But look, these discussions about regulation always focus on 2 things. What kind and how much regulation is too much? Where's the limit? Where does Senator Lummis stand on?
So, yeah, right now lawmakers are doing more listening than legislating. She talked a lot about trying to convene industry players with regulators and with other lawmakers to try to explain cryptocurrency to her colleagues on Capitol Hill first and foremost. but then understanding sort of the line between can regulators handle this, or is this?
I think Las Vegas Sands is actually interesting right now. I think it might be a buying opportunity, especially with everything opening up. I think the casinos and the hotels could have some, pent up demand and people just waiting to go on vacations or go to Vegas. So it's interesting. I mean, it's in a downtrend right now, so it's kind of risky buying something that's downtrending, but we could be getting close to a short-term bottom. So it's something I'm keeping my eye on.
It's been super fun working with them and talking with them. I think they've been interested in crypto for a while, and they're obviously.
I would watch for a break above this resistance level that it has. It needs to break above that trend line.
The laser eyes didn't work. Anyone have any ideas? Were you engaged in these talks, over the last few months? Was this more, I guess what I'm saying is.
I'm really watching technology and the market as a whole closer than I normally would, just because of where we are in the markets with all-time highs and we have divergences, and I'm just really seeing a lot of different indicators telling me we could be getting close to a short-term top in the market, and yeah, something to watch out for. I mean, just look at the candle we're creating here. This is could be a bearish doji candle here, so gonna be interesting to watch what happens the next few days of this week and the beginning of next month.
Mobile app, the website, the API, the customer-facing brand, the compliance solution, and everything packaged into one except for the buyer and the seller. We have about $10 to $15 billion per day of volume that trades on FTX, and it's split between a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. Although Bitcoin and Ethereum are certainly the two most traded.
Sam, it's Eamon Javers here. If I could jump in with a question on that. So far this hour, we've heard from a former director of the CIA, we've heard from a cybersecurity expert, we've heard from a United States senator, all talking about the idea of crypto in one way or another being involved in this ransomware and cybersecurity issue that's plaguing corporate America right now. And I guess my question for you is, how do you approach anti-money laundering, and how can you do it at a level, or can you do it at a level that the big banks and big exchanges do?
It doesn't look too hot.
Totally. So
I burnt my pizza.
We've had an AML KYC program since day one. We conduct thorough checks on all of our customers. Both in terms of
the Nasdaq is looking weaker than the S&Ps, but today the S&Ps are underperforming. You see, we're actually at the low of day, and we're below where we closed yesterday. So I think we're in for a short-term bounce on the S&Ps. You see, it's oversold technically. And this is just a very short-term chart, but we're also below the bottom Bollinger Band, so we could be, and here we have our start to a green candle. I'm going to draw a line here just to kind of see where this goes so we can backtest our estimates. But I'm predicting that very soon here we'll have a short-term bounce in the S&Ps, and from there it could go higher or could go lower, but I think we're going to have a bounce soon. Nasdaq,
yeah, I mean, there's all that, but
I'm thinking it's going to have a correction soon, but this one, it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week. It's kind of a toss-up right now, but we'll see where this takes us, but I do think we'll have the correction within the next month.
Usually it isn't actually the sort of, the bad act itself, it's rather related to a person.
Check that out. I just got an
and
email
we'll
back.
talk about tracking that down and help to the extent that we can. But we're talking about hundreds of agencies because this really is global.
So you talk about hundreds of agencies around the world. How do you coordinate all that?
Could actually be looking at a break of trend on the Nasdaq here. We have our trend line trading in this range, and then we have our first candle breaking that trend line. I guess we'll see. It could also be looked at.
On the market
Oh, certainly. I mean, for one thing, we've just seen people attempting to withdraw to.
This could also
or,
be
you know,
another way to look at
organizations
it.
which are themselves pretty bad actors, and we'll block those every time. But we've also had a number of cases where governments have reached out to us. We've worked with them, and whether or not we've been able to stop the crime itself, we may have been able to recover funds from it after it happened.
Well, Sam, thanks so much. It's such a fascinating.
Today I bought some Coca-Cola stock. I'm kind of getting in some safety stocks, and I'm holding a good amount of cash to buy the dip.
It looks like it's got a long way to go.
If there is a dip. So I have definitely a cash position on standby, and I'm kind of getting into some defensive stocks like Coca-Cola and just get some returns while I wait for whatever I'm waiting for to happen.
Down through a falling wedge. That would be nice.
Don't forget to join our trading Discord and check out the other links in our description if you're interested in joining a trading community or joining our Reddit. We have a bunch of different pages and groups, and we have a lot of skilled professional traders within our groups that can teach and train you guys how to become profitable traders.
Bullish price action, but hopefully we can get that support to break. This support is merely a 161 channel level, and I mean, at the end of the day, it responded to the 200% channel level, but it really faded out there. Green. So we may see the 100.
The chips are also really interesting. We have NVIDIA, which has just been on fire, a powerhouse, and it's at $800 per share, which is kind of crazy, but the chips are really interesting right now. We have even AMD has had a nice comeback from 72 to almost 90, so I was buying it pretty aggressively when it was dipping into the 70s. I sold it probably, the low 80s, so I probably sold it a little bit too early, but, it's showing overbought on the daily time frame, so definitely watch out the chips, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, which isn't really as good, but they have a nice little dividend. Microsoft has also been on fire. Microsoft at 271. It's crazy. I remember when it was just getting above 200 and everyone was rooting for it, and now it's almost at 300. That's
and now some reporting from
pretty
our
crazy.
son JP Morgan is betting big on ESG. The bank buying ESG investing platform Open Invest. According to reporting from Houston, the San Francisco-based startup was founded by former Bridgewater Associates employees and backed by Andreessen Horowitz. Now, rather than just pour money into ESG funds, clients can use Open Invest to create customized values-based portfolios. This is JP Morgan's third fintech acquisition in the past year. You can read more from Q on CNBC.com, even though Q himself has already gone on vacation. Now, over to Seema Modi for Trading News.
The move is drastic.
Thank you, Eamon. GE getting a big endorsement from Goldman Sachs. Analysts naming that stock one of their top large cap ideas and calling it the ultimate self-help reopening leverage story in industrials. What does that mean? GE already seeing a major comeback up 120% from last September's lows. Let's bring in the Trading Nation team. This is an interesting name to discuss, gentlemen. Todd Gordon of TradingAnalysis.com, Delano Saparu of New Street Advisors. Todd, I spoke with CEO Larry Culp last quarter, and he actually told me that he wouldn't rule out more M&A, more deals and restructuring taking place at General Electric. Of course, he's played a pivotal role in changing the narrative, right, around the stock.
Yeah. Yeah. Larry Culp is certainly a hard worker, and I know the morale is improved. But if I could just talk about the industrials overall first, Seema, that Goldman report was interesting. They showed that ISM broke above 60, the highest level since 1987. But if you compare that to customer inventories, they're at a record low from 97. So there's some restocking to do, which I think is good for the overall industrials. I do like GE here, though. Technically speaking, the stock was hanging below 12.5 bucks, 2020. Now we're using it as support in 2021. The stock is very sensitive to interest rates, so if you overlay the 10-year yield on GE, you'll see it. I'm not expecting higher yield, so that could be a little bit of a headwind, but on a tailwind, I really like this order from United, 270 jets. GE's probably going to make engines for both of them. In the power division, they're making a strong move into renewable energy with this onshore wind technology. They're actually leading the industry, and they're gearing up to...
Did you guys see Bitcoin and Ethereum today? Having a pretty good day finally after that big
I hold the stock
correction it's been having.
On and offshore wind, renewables been a big focus of Culp. Delano, looking through this Goldman Sachs report,
My crypto accounts did pretty good today.
It is the most rate-sensitive stock in its coverage. GE, of course, has not just aviation, but power, healthcare, renewable. It's very much tied to the health of the global economy.
Yes, 100%. And also the smaller segment of their business, the capital leasing portion, which I think ties a little bit to that rate talk, which again, I don't believe rates, I'm not projecting rates to be rising by the end of next year, by the end of this year, which would play into some of the headwinds that are possible for GE. I also think you're looking at the business on an organic basis. Obviously, top line, is trending downwards, and I know they're doing some M&A acquisitions to kind of help circumvent that. But if you look at the business overall, it's very cyclical, and we're looking at seeing that rotation back into growth now. This stock has run up about 90% over the past year, and if you're looking at it, I think a lot of the good news is priced into GE. Still a lot of headwinds ahead of it. I'm staying out of the stock.
Understood. $13 a share. Delano and Todd, thank you. And for more Trading Nation, head to our website or follow us on Twitter. Kelly, back to you.
Seema Modi, thank you very much. United Airlines is betting big on the travel recovery with 200 new planes and interiors, and we are taking you to the unveiling.
New planes, new interiors, and a new approach to customer service. I'm Phil LeBeau with a look at United's big investment coming up on Power Lunch.
And now, the latest from TradingNation.CNBC.com and a word from our sponsor.
Many traders like to watch technical patterns, and one of the most popular ones is called the Golden Cross. The Golden Cross is where the 50-day moving average moves up through the 200-day moving average. And while this pattern is not intended to get you in at the very bottom, it can often be an effective entry point for a stock or ETF that's in an uptrend. I'm Randy Frederick, and Schwab is the better place for traders.
Oh, good call, Raymond. I will. That thing's been driving me crazy, and I haven't done anything about it. I'm going to take care of that right now. Oh, there we go. There we go. That should end the beeping. This thing's like a Chucky doll. I pulled it off the battery out and it's still beeping somehow, but I think that should do it now. Keeps coming back. there any stocks that you guys want me to cover? I'm going to be ending the stream pretty soon here. But if there's anything you want me to cover, let me know. Don't forget to check out the trading Discord and our Wall Street Bets New on Reddit.
I'll post the picture he sent me.
Verizon is kind of looking interesting. Coca-Cola, these aren't the most exciting stocks, but they are relatively safe. And if you have extra money, if you're an investor looking to get a better return than having cash in the bank, these stocks are, they have a solid dividend yield and they could potentially be undervalued. AT&T is a little bit more risky with everything they have going on. Their company is going to be changing drastically and they could lose their dividend.
Huge orders for new planes. Is at the company's hub in Newark, New Jersey. Phil, take it away.
Eamon, this is a huge order and one that will play out over the next 5 years. Let's spell it out for you.
Lockheed Martin is interesting as well.
By United Airlines, the retail list price is over $30 billion, likely paying closer to $16 billion. It breaks down.
It's hard to break.
270 new airplanes are being ordered by United. 200 of those will be 737 MAXs. 70 of those will be Airbus A321neos. They'll take delivery over the next 5 years, with the real acceleration coming in 2023. Here's CEO Scott Kirby.
By the time we get to 2023, one new airplane every 3 days, which I don't know of any airline.
Let's look at GE. So actually, I was looking at GE yesterday. I was thinking of, I think it was like one of these red days. I was gonna sell a cash secured put. So I actually used to trade GE a ton when it was like between $7 and $10, and I should have held on to it because it, kept going up, and now it's like trading around close to $15, and so just because I'm used to trading it less than $10 per share, it kind of scares me from buying GE. With that being said, I used to sell a lot of covered calls and cash secured puts on GE, so I think if it has a big down move, it might be worth selling a cash secured put and possibly getting a position. If you're interested in GE stock, maybe you want to go long, or you think it's going to go higher. I think it's a solid company, and I think it does have a good chance of going higher, but it's not. It's a little bit more risky than a lot of other, it's higher risk, higher reward. But looking at the MACD, actually, it could be making a bullish MACD cross on the short term, but the RSI isn't really signaling anything, and it's closer to the all-time high or to the yearly high than it is to the low. So I think looking at it from a risk versus reward, it's more risk for a small amount of reward. So that's my take on GE, but that's just my personal opinion and my technical, from a technical point of view, but it could continue to go higher because for all I know, I sold it at like $10 or $11 per share, and it went all the way up to 14. So it could go back up there.
Around the country and the world just over the past month. I was in Tampa, I was in Geneva. Now I'm here in New York. The airlines are full. The airports are full. People are traveling.
I like to look for extreme overbought or oversold positions. I like, either something that's, overbought on a longer term time frame, like technology is right now, looking at the RSI, or something that's like oversold and it could be a bargain buy. I guess Lockheed Martin isn't the best example, but pretty much stocks that are below their bottom Bollinger Band. Hopefully the daily time frame has RSI below or at 30, and with the MACD either relatively close to making a bullish cross or a bearish cross. So that's kind of the setups that I like to look for, but there's always other ways to trade, and there's really millions of different strategies and setups and everything out there. But that's what I like to trade is extremes.
But people are desperate to get back out and get back to normal life, and it's so encouraging to see that kind of a report from Phil.
My overall position and strategy right now is I'm buying a lot of these value stocks just so I have exposure. I'm also buying technology as a whole, even though it's overbought, but I'm hedging my position with short technology positions, and I have a large cash position for buying a dip. So if there is a dip in technology, I'm going to be aggressively buying, Apple, Microsoft, Adobe, Facebook, NVIDIA, Shopify. These are all really good growth companies, and I'm pretty much just waiting for a buying opportunity, which doesn't come that often. So when it does come, you better have cash ready. You better be, waiting and just ready to pounce. So I'm kind of like a hunter, kind of stalking my prey and waiting for the opportunity to pounce.
Someone mentioned the possible head and shoulders here.
I like to consider myself an active investor and a trader.
Standard. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the 3-minute too, by the way.
Because
making the right shoulder.
Yeah, is it too ugly though? Kind of.
It depends on where. Like if it gets up to the.
That's where I was looking. If it got up as high as there, I would look at taking it.
Yeah, if there's signs of weakness towards that area, we could, attempt to get in on the shoulder break.
But I thought that left shoulder was kind of a little
different.
Yeah, Phantom of the Opera style.
it's a massive move in Shopify. 1,200 to 1,550. I was actually aggressively buying Shopify. I think 1,000. If it ever goes back down close to 1,000, that's where I loved to buy, and I made really good profits from Shopify at those levels. Let's look at our portfolio. Palo Alto Networks. This is also a good company. CrowdStrike. Good software company. A little bit more risky. Airbnb, this is actually something I've been watching and trading. So I think Airbnb as a company is a great idea, and I think it's for the long term. I think it's going to stick around, and hopefully they can monetize it and find a way to become very profitable. But I think Airbnb is a good long-term interesting position. Technically, the momentum is kind of pushing down, and even the MACD is making a bearish cross, but I don't think it's going to go much lower. We're not that far from lows, so keep an eye out for Airbnb, and if you can get it maybe around 130 to 140, might be a good position for a swing trade.
You're seeing several companies that we're going to bring right across the screen. There you go, Freeport, Southern Copper.
Square, this is good. It's performing well today because of crypto, obviously. Crypto is doing really good today. PayPal. Not a whole lot of volume on PayPal today, and that candle is actually interesting. When you see a candle that looks like this at the end of a it typically comes at the end of a trend. So when you see a doji candle like this at extreme highs or extreme lows, this candle typically indicates that some kind of reversal is going to come, which means that PayPal would go down from here. It could have a couple of more green candles on the daily time frame, so it could be a few more days. but that candle is definitely interesting. Kind of see the same thing on the NASDAQ. It's just a little kind of fatter. You see a small wick at the top, larger wick at the bottom. So these are called doji candles, and there's a million different kinds of dojis, but I think that's pretty interesting. Even the S&P is a very similar doji pattern.
Thank you, Kelly, and welcome to Closing Bell. I'm Sarah Eisen here at the New York Stock Exchange. S&P 500 sets another intraday record high, but it is well off of the best levels of the session, actually dipping negative.
The VIX is at extreme lows, so I actually am holding VIX calls, and that's part of my hedge. And the VIX, as you can see, looking at a daily time frame, it reached its lowest point of the year today. I think that's actually a multi-year low. Yeah, this is the lowest the VIX has been in the last 3 years. So if you are bearish on the market, or if you think there'll be an increase in volatility, the VIX options might be something interesting to trade. I would recommend trading the actual VIX itself instead of like UVXY or VXX, because these are created strictly for the short term and they are leveraged, so you can actually make more money if you're right, but the odds, the probability of profit is much less than just a VIX call, because these are designed to go down. The whole point of this instrument is pretty much to go to zero over time. So obviously you don't want to buy something that is supposed to go to zero unless you time it absolutely perfectly, and in that case, you know, all power to you, and hopefully you make a ton of money.
Hold on, we don't want anybody to get hurt.
It has been kind of a grind. Below the surface, not a lot of really energy behind it, I just would say. That's not really a
Yeah, the energy is actually interesting today. Chevron could be a buying opportunity. Still a little bit high, trading in a range. Along with the energy companies like Duke Energy, these really are safety plays, but I mean, this thing is yielding like 4.5%, something like that, so you know, that's not too terrible. I've been trading Rocket a lot, so Rocket is kind of like my go-to speculative trading stock. I think over the long term, it's a decent quality stock. It's got a high implied volatility, meaning the options, you can sell the options for nice inflated prices. So I currently have a cash secured put on Rocket companies. I have a cash secured put expiring this Friday with a $19 strike price. So that's just, it's only got $6 left of premium in it. And then I also have a $21 covered call, which I made over 50% on today. I sold it on Friday for like $30 and it lost half of its value today, so I could close it if I wanted and make some profits, but that's kind of my bread and butter is selling options, selling puts, selling covered calls, and using different option strategies.
The forward earnings estimate continues to go up. So one way to just sort of rule of thumb it in your head, it's kind of like $200, roughly speaking.
Yeah, I'm going to be setting the stream up better with my second monitor and better setup with my cam and everything. This is just kind of our first day streaming and just trying to get some ideas out there and, you know, just get things out there.
That's the normal pattern. And after you get one of these big rebound years, can you rely on what 2022 is going to look like? It's already the end of June. It's almost in that window when the markets essentially are dialing ahead to next year.
Mike, great stuff. Thanks so much. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the banks, which Mike just touched on. Of course, a number of them are moving higher after they announced their capital allocation plans in the wake of passing the Fed stress test last week. Goldman Sachs announcing a 60% dividend increase to $2 a share. Morgan Stanley doubling it to 70 cents a share, also boosting its buyback. Wells Fargo planning to also double its dividend, 20 cents a share. Used to be at 51 cents a share.
QYLD.
By 17% to 21 cents. JP Morgan.
Oh, this is the NASDAQ covered call ETF, isn't it? So yeah, I am familiar with these type of ETFs. So I believe, I think that's covered ETF. I think that's what this is, but technically, looking at it right away, it could be within a triangle. So this would pretty much mean that the range is tightening and it's looking to break out one way or the other. So it could go down, it could go up. But overall, this is underperformed just buying the NASDAQ outright. So this ETF is pretty much the NASDAQ, but they are required to continuously sell covered calls on their position, and you know, it's not performing as well. It's less risky than the NASDAQ itself, but you know, it's got a history of underperforming, so I would just stick with the NASDAQ or another technology company, but it's up to you. A good thing I would recommend to being introduced to like selling covered calls and stuff like that, instead of just buying an ETF that does all the covered calls and all the work for you, would be to just try it yourself. And a stock like GE is how I started, or a stock like Ford. These are stocks that are only, you know, $10 to $15 per share. So if you want to sell an option, it's only going to cost you $1,300, and the risk is relatively minimal. Let's say you sell a $12 put on GE. The maximum you can lose is $12, and that's if GE goes to zero, which isn't going to happen. They would have to go pretty much bankrupt and out of business. And so that's just a way to get familiar with covered calls and cash secured puts, and then just tweaking your strategy from there. That's how I learned. I started with a small account. I started with cheap stocks like GE, and eventually I started selling $20 stocks and $30 stocks and just worked my way up, getting more premium, and yeah. But to answer your question, I mean, it's kind of mid-range right now. It's within a triangle, and it's most likely going to break out one way or another. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this performs if the NASDAQ goes down. Because you can see the NASDAQ has been going up, and this has been pretty much flat. So if the NASDAQ goes down, it'll probably stay flat, but it's more protected than the NASDAQ, so it might outperform the NASDAQ in a bearish market. So that's something to keep in mind.
I think they've got expenses under control. They're getting the exit markets in place. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of short-sightedness seeing Citi get pounded the last few weeks. I think it's a good opportunity to get in because it's a bit of a turnaround story. And
we got earnings coming up. I think earnings season starts on the 15th, so about 2 weeks, and we have the start of earnings season. And that could be a catalyst for some kind of move in the markets.
I do think that gets a little timing-wise nitpicky. I wouldn't be afraid to be buying into the quarter. I think it's going to be a good quarter, probably a surprisingly good quarter on the capital market side. I guess the only potential hiccup would be we're coming into summer, and that tends to be seasonally it's kind of selling into summer, so that could factor in at all. But start looking at the back half of this year. I think that the universal banks will be pleasant surprises for the industry.
Jeff Hart, thank you for joining us.
I think I'm gonna cut the stream for the night. We have market closing in 50 minutes, so thanks for everyone for watching. Check the comment or the description of the video, and you'll see some links to our community and our Discord, which I recommend joining. And thanks for watching. We'll be streaming